Hi, welcome back. This is video 5 in the Social Security series. It is the conclusion, but I want to let you know there's a lot of heavy stuff, a lot of material in there. So this will be a fairly kind of a review as well as introducing a lot of new material. We're going to talk very lightly about the 5 income retirement risks. We have systematic risk. We have sequence of returns, longevity and inflation, healthcare costs. Now, we do address the healthcare cost in the video on Medicare, which is nice. You may want to watch that. But today we're going to take 2 of those risks, the sequence of returns and taxes, and we're going to spend a little bit more time with it. We're going to look at some tax returns and find ways that the Social Security decisions, if you implement them without looking at these other things, could really make a huge difference. Planning becomes important. Again, we always talk about this. It's important that all the pieces fit together. It's super important. Super important. And we'll take a look at some specific examples of why you can wind up making some big mistakes and losing a lot of money or paying a lot in taxes. Here's the thing. Back in 1984, they decided they wanted to tax wealthy Americans on their Social Security benefits. And so what they're going to do is this, very simple. Are your Social Security benefits going to be taxed? Most likely, for a lot of people, they will be. But you have to always keep in the back of your mind how to gauge the tax effect on your Social Security decisions. In this particular case, you have none of your benefits taxed if you're earning less than $25,000 a year. This is for a single individual. Half of your Social Security benefits become taxable if your income is greater than $25,000 but less than $34,000, and then they go up to 85% of benefits are taxable if you're greater than $34,000. Very simply, what this said is this: you were considered a wealthy American if you were single and your income was over $25,000, and that includes half of your Social Security. So technically, if you got $15,000 from a pension, and you got $10,000 in Social Security, they would take half of that Social Security and add that to your pension of $15,000 and add the 5 to that so that you would have a total of 20. No problem. But if you got some interest income and then interest income was $5,000, then you're at the $25,000 number, and then half of that Social Security would be considered taxable income. So it's important to understand these numbers and how they work. What they decided to do is that we really didn't get these old folks hard enough. So in 1994, they actually changed the law again. And what simply happened is that, again, if you're for married filing joint return, if you're at less than $32,000 for a joint, none of your benefits are taxed. Half the benefits become taxable if you're greater than $32,000 but less than $44,000, and then a full 85% of your benefits are taxable if your income is greater than $44,000. Now, we're going to take a look. One of your handouts is we're going to take a look at a tax return. How much will required distributions be taxed at? Or interest income, or anything over a certain amount of numbers. So what I want you to do is to do this. Get ready, get your tax returns handy. So let's say it's 70.5. We all know that we have to take some money out of an IRA. If we don't take the money out of the IRA, there's a big penalty. It's about 50% penalty plus other taxes. So when you do your Social Security planning, it has to be done and include any RMDs, which again are your required minimum distributions. It's critical. And we're going to see what a huge difference a small amount of withdrawals out of an IRA account can really do. If you get a chance, have it handy. I'm going to be reading and showing you on the screen. A tax return is going to show 2 couples. They're virtually identical. And let's take a look. If you turn to tax return A, you'll see there's tax return A and tax return B. There's actually that section has 5 pieces in it. So what I want you to do is look at tax return A, and tax return A is going to have, go to the first page. I'll have my name on it. my spouse's name on it. And I want you to take a look, start to go down at these things. Number one, let's look at line 8A. Line 8A shows interest of, they may have had a CD and they got about $121 worth of interest. So, and I ask the question sometimes, folks, what does CD stand for? And everyone in the group will raise their hand or they'll shout out, it's a certificate of deposit. And I go, no, everybody's wrong. I said, what CD stands for is certificate of disappointment. I'm old enough to remember when Carter was president, and the CD rates were obviously way higher than they are now. So let's look at that $121 worth of interest. We're going to go into line 12. It's going to show they have a pension of about $45,000 in income. And if you go to line 14A, it's going to show their Social Security, which is about $50,000. Now, what I want you to do is either turn the page or go to the next page, which is actually A1, and you're going to see line 39. And it's going to tell you, based on those numbers, this couple has taxable income of about 30, or line 39, of taxable income, or their taxes due about $6,611. Now, let's do tax return B. We're going to show it's virtually identical. So to do a test, we're going to keep all the numbers the same except one thing. We're going to show the same $45,000 in pension, the same $50,000 in Social Security income, and the small amount of interest in the certificate of disappointment. Now, let's take a look and show what one withdrawal of $20,000 would do to that tax return. Now, it could be your required distribution. It could be you just wanted or needed some money. You wanted to go on a vacation. You wanted to take more than your required distribution. Who knows? Who cares? My wife and I were fortunate last year. We took two of our oldest grandchildren to Disney in Florida. You may want to do that. Whatever. It's the object. It's your money. You want to use some of it. You have that right. And let's just take a look at how the tax changes. Now, if you're looking at tax return B, you're going to see line 8A. It's going to show the same interest of $121. The difference here is we have line 11A. 11A shows the IRA distribution of $20,000. Going to line 12, it's the same as was before, of $45,000. Go to line 14A, shows a Social Security of $50,000. But now what I want you to do is I want you to turn the page. And we're going to look at B1. And it's showing the difference. Now, if you look at line 39, and I want you to kind of see it with me, what's the taxes due on that $20,000 increase? Now, everything else stayed the same, but the benefit went up $20,000. The tax is now $12,719. That's a huge, huge difference. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is take your other part of the tax package. You have the two tax returns, A and B. There's another piece of paper in there. And what we're going to look at, I think, is something that's pretty interesting, a little synopsis of the whole tax return. What I want you to look at is on the first tax return, we had a tax due, return A, of about $6,611. After the $20,000 withdrawal on tax return B, we had a tax due of $12,719. So what I want to bring up here, it's pretty straightforward. We took $20,000 additional out, but the taxes went up another $6,108. Now, if you do some quick division and you divide the 61 by the 20,000, you're going to find out that the tax rate, the tax bracket, went up 32.7%. So we're paying 32.7% more taxes. If you want to round it off, it's basically a 33% tax rate. So if you look at the chart down below, I highlighted it in red. and you'll look now for a 33% bracket, a married filing a joint return, that's an income between $231,000 and $413,000. What I'm trying to explain here is this small withdrawal really pushed these folks up into a tax bracket that would be considered ultra wealthy, people making almost a little over $400,000 a year. So when we look at the numbers on a tax return, it's very important, and I know I do stress that a few times, that any strategies have to be looked at by doing a pro forma tax return or a pro forma 1040, just to see how these numbers actually look in the end. So what's important here is before you make any decisions, you have to look at the tax effect for a couple of simple reasons. One, it may change your Social Security choice. You may decide that, hey, I'm not going to choose this this idea with Social Security. I'm going to take this one because of the impact that taxes will have. And we have to be aware of the increase in Medicare costs. Remember, Medicare's means tested. We learned about that, or you can learn about that in the video on Medicare. And that's going to explain to you the difference of how much more you're going to pay in Medicare costs, which are obviously important because that's for your lifetime. Here's some ideas that you can use to mitigate or negate some of those tax increases. You have to learn that there's different types of money as we go through there. You have to learn the terms FIFO, LIFO, and FIBO. Learn the file and suspend strategies for Social Security, especially at age 66 when you can do your DRC, which is delayed retirement credits, and then use other dollars. Now that may have a great savings impact. Learn to use FIBO to lower your Social Security income taxes. Learn about a QLAC, which is very important. Also understand how to use Roth money, the exclusion ratio money. And you want to look to control your MAGI. MAGI is modified adjusted gross income. And the important part there is because MAGI determines how much of your Social Security gets taxed and how much you pay an increase in Medicare premiums. Now, what happens is we'll address a lot more of these topics in the tax reduction strategy video series. But for this part on Social Security, we're going to just mention very, very lightly. Now, you see the word QLAC, and a lot of folks will say, hey, I heard Joe speak about that, and I want to do a quick internet or Google search. So here's what came up when I did a Google search on QLAC. Now, what you're going to find is it says in the highlight, don't use a QLAC to avoid RMD obligations. And if you look at the next one, 13 reasons why a QLAC belongs in your IRA. So what's happening here is pretty straightforward. There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. The huge difference is this. When you see this on the actual 6 steps and the reports, you're going to see a huge, well, this makes sense in this case, or it doesn't make sense. It's very, very important. I kind of refer to it helps to filter out the noise. You know, you may have heard from a neighbor, a friend, or a family member, oh, you got to use these QLACs. They're great. They'll work well for you. And a QLAC simply will let you have some money in an IRA that you don't have to take out until you're age 85 instead of the age 70 and a half when you have the required distributions. So that may work well, but in actuality, someone else will say that, hey, they're not that good. Don't use them. So it becomes very difficult. You have the noise. So when you see it in writing and you see it on the report, it really helps, I think, to solidify it and make it a lot clearer. Now, as we're going to go and we talk about sometimes averages, and a lot of folks will say, you know, I get an average return, or the market's going to produce an average return. So I want to show a very simple chart. If you have $100,000 in an account and the account drops 25%, it's pretty straightforward. The balance you see right next to the 25 it'll now be worth about $75,000. How do you get back to the $100,000. Well, folks will say, well, if it drops 25%, then you need 25% to get back. The answer is no. In this particular case, I circled it. You need 33 1/3% to get back. So technically, if you have some money in an account and there's a market drop and it's a 25% drop, the next year that market has to grow by 33 1/3% to get back to where you originally started from. Hi. When we talk about averages and sequence of returns, it's really important to understand how this works, because ultimately it really may change your Social Security decisions. As you look in the future, you're going to say, looking at sequence of returns, sequence of investment returns, you're going to find that you may have made the wrong Social Security decision. So it's really critical. What I've done is I excerpted from a program I presented at William Patterson University, given to a group of CPAs. And it's going to show a couple that is 65 years old, and they were interested in getting an income from their investments for at least 30 years, until at least they figure one of them will live at least to 30 years. What we're showing is a 5% each year withdrawal that we adjusted each year for inflation of about 3%. So as we look at this illustration, you'll see how sequence of returns can make a really huge difference in your account. See what it looks like. What we did here, the couple had started with about $250,000, and as you can see, in the first year they took out the $12,500. But this is what makes this portfolio so exciting. It had a great return the first year. They can see that their money was actually going up. Different than, obviously, they knew they were taking money out. They expected it to stay the same or go down. But in this case, the portfolio is actually growing. So they really made a very good investment choice. They've got this 7% average return. They actually, if you go down the list, you'll see that they made a fairly substantial profit. If one of them is alive at 94, you'll see that there's a total of $712,000 in that account that we've gotten the first year in the hypothetical annual return. And we're going to bring it and make it the last year's return. And exact opposite, we're going to take the last year's return of 94, which is at minus 17.6, and bring it into the first year of our new model. So what we did basically simply is we took our returns, exactly flipped them, so the first year became the last year and the last year became the first year. Now we can jumble the numbers up because we don't know, again, we're all subject to randomness, but I want to show you the difference in what a sequence of return makes on it. Everything changes when you're taking money out of your portfolio. So what we're saying is this: you got a 65-year-old couple. They now want to enjoy a little bit of their savings. They say, hey, look, we worked most of our lives. We want to take a little of this money out because we want to or we need to. And that's going to help them maintain their lifestyle. As you look at the columns, you're going to see something extremely interesting. What happens here is they're actually run out of money. As you see in those first years, $193,000, they're taking the same money out as they were before. The difference is that this account is slowly dropping. What really made the difference is the sequence of their returns. We put those bad 3 years in the beginning, and we put the good years, the better years at the end. So the sequence of these returns, again, we don't know where they're going to be, how they're going to be, in what order they're going to be. We just know that the same number, still a 7% average, could be very, very different amounts of money and very different outcomes. So if you look here, you'll see those first 3 years, we had some bad years in there. It was 17, 12, and 3. Those were bad years, but you spoke to your broker, your advisor, and he said, look, you're in the market for the long term. The market's going to come back, and market always comes back. And he was correct. And you'll see in the next 3 years, the market did come back. And it came back fairly strongly with the 6% and 8% and a 15% return. But if you look to the column to the right, these increases in returns were not enough to really bring this portfolio back to where it was before with a better set of numbers. So if you look a little bit further, you'll see in the, I guess that's year 6 or year 7, there was a small little hiccup in the market. It dropped a 3% return, but the market came back strong for the next, I guess that's 7 years or so, or 8 years. And what happened? You got a 7%, a 16.9%, a 7%, 11, a 12, and an 8, and whatever. So what's happening here is the market really kind of kicked into overdrive, got some great returns, but if you look at the column to the right of it, you'll see that the numbers are not going up because there's not enough in that account to really take advantage of this market growth. As you look again, you'll see in year 30, in year, I guess it's age 80, you'll see another hiccup again at minus 3.2%. But what's happening if you look at the ones in the circle or the oval? There's a huge amount of stress that's going on with these couple. If you can ever think of like an analogy or a story, if you're running low on gas and you're in a very unfamiliar area, maybe a different state, you kind of tend to focusing on that gas gauge. You're looking every few seconds or so. You're not really enjoying your trip or concentrating where you're going. Your eyes are focused on the gas gauge. So what we found with a lot of folks is that when you have this portfolio, especially in the early years, it kind of has a few bad little hiccups in there. It really puts a huge damper because as you see your balance going down, it's a huge amount of stress on, am I going to have enough? Is there going to be enough for my spouse if you have one for her to live on? So this particular slide is showing the same thing, 7% average return, but a hugely different return. So what we're going to learn here is simply this. Average returns do not matter in the accumulation part. So when you're accumulating money, average returns do not make a difference. But here's the problem that we all, that a lot of folks face. Every advisor and every forecasting program uses average returns to show you numbers. In other words, what dollars are you going to have based on a withdrawal rate? So they're using average, but we just saw that average returns can mean different things to different people, different things at different times, because we don't know what sequence these average returns are going to happen. So what we want to do is, why does this happen? Why would they show you average returns when they know average returns could mean it could never be anything close to average, or it can be higher or lower? So what we found is that when you show average returns, like in the example, it looks much better on paper. And more folks are inclined to keep their money with them, their advisors, and hope that the average returns really mean something. But as we learned, they really don't. Hopefully, the example we just looked at will show you how important it is to look at everything. And I'm going to kind of revert back to those examples. Both of the prior examples showed an average of 7% return, yet one did woefully, ran out of money, and one did very well. So sometimes the term average is very misleading, but if you decided to look at some of these returns and you didn't look at all your other decisions, why is that important? Because had I looked at sequence of returns or understood a little bit, I may make different Social Security choices. If I know I'm going to run out of money or possibility of running out of money, that definitely will make me choose maybe a different Social Security option, maybe waiting longer to collect so I'd have more money when the other account ran out. So it's very important that when you look at it, you need to look at all the little pieces and how everything fits together and fits together well. What I want to do is refer to your handout. It should be handout number 2. When I do a live presentation, I normally laminate these for folks because it's something they're going to use a lot. This is going to give you what I call the 6 steps in the Social Security and income process. What it is, very simply, is I want you to get your handout handy as we look at it. Step 1 is you're going to create your account at Social Security. It's ssa.gov. You're going online. You're creating your account. You can view your statement with them anytime you like. You're going to look at your wage information from socialsecurity.gov. So you're going to look at that number and see what it is, and they're going to give you three options. An option at 62, age 66, and at age 70. They're really the one that's critical when you use a lot of the software programs that when we do a live report with you on the phone. It's the age 66 benefit. The computer calculates the benefit at 62, and it also will calculate it at age 70. It's based on your full retirement age. Now, the nice thing about it is that Social Security, if you have trouble getting online, a few of people that went through the program, so they had trouble getting registered online, Social Security does have phone help, and they do call back and do get to, and actually people were pleased were able to get the help they needed and to get online. I want you to carefully read your statement after you print it. A lot of folks will get it. They'll look at one number. I want you to look at all 4 pages and really kind of get this to work and to look, to really, so you understand it well. Now, what I want to do is this. The step 2 is you want to put in the benefit amount and the information. And this will show you all your possible claiming strategies. Then we have a choice to look at life expectancy, how long do you think you're going to live, and approximately when you're going to retire. Now, the nice thing about this is, like I said, this is done with you live on the computer. While we're talking on the phone, you get to see my computer screen. And the nice thing about it is, as we can change, we can say, gee, I'm going to maybe retired in 6 months longer than I thought it would be. How does that change it? Or what if I don't live as long? We can constantly change those numbers, and that will give you a different overall report. That's what the Social Security report looks like. Now, what do? Step 3 and step 4 is you have to understand Social Security. You want to have should I file now or file later? What if a spouse passes away sooner? We know that you can't get both benefits. What's at stake? What do I lose or gain by waiting or changing? And you can see that actually on the physical report. You want to look at what I call keep refining your report. You need to do it on the retrained eye. In other words, someone will tell you or work with you and say, here's how we can kind of tweak this a little bit better. And to get a result that will work with the way you want to do it. Step 4 is you take your Social Security report after it's been kind of refined, and you're going to integrate that into an income report. So what that's going to show you is your Social Security numbers with any other sources of income and how all these pieces fit together. As far as if there's going to be a tax problem, we looked at very simply with the IRA distribution, is there going to be sufficient income if a spouse passes sooner, or if you have a sequence of return problem? It's going to show you how all the pieces fit together. You'll be able to see that, as we said here on the screen, you'll be able to see that a little bit more clearly. Step 5 is pretty straightforward. You're going to build and tweak the plan. You're going to create a roadmap. And a roadmap is simply directions how to do it, when to do it, how to do this, how to do that. And you need someone that knows Social Security, that really understands it. You want someone that's also a tax and how to integrate all these things, a maven. So what we tend to look at is someone is like myself, is I'm basically a deaccumulation specialist. I help with the deaccumulation or the use of your accumulated wealth and retirement. You want to learn if you can use a bridge strategy, how to reduce any kind of market drops in there, and securing, making sure you have a lifetime income, which is very important for obviously maintaining your retirement. Now, step 6 is pretty straightforward. It's an annual review. You want to look at it. You want to discuss any kind of trip plans and what the grandkids did and so forth. What this is hoping to do, when you use steps 1 through 5, it's putting you in a position where you can enjoy your retirement and not concerned most often with looking at that gas gauge. So any kind of changes in there, if there's any kind of change of health and tax rules or income, that's maybe you can make some quick changes. But the concept here is you want to stay the course, eyes off of the gas gauge. You don't want to be looking, you want to know that my income is secure, I made the best decisions possible, and I'm enjoying my retirement. Let's see, let's take a look. What does the actual Social Security report look like? Now, when we do the report, understand it's approximately 25 pages, so it's not a one-page report. Very, very different than the free ones that you get on maybe a Social Security website, or AARP website or some commercial websites. It's a very, very different process. This really talks about putting all the pieces together and showing you how everything works and works well. Now, this is an example or sample of step 3. This is going to show you, in this particular case, it's a couple, David and Kathy. Current age is both 66. It'll show you their monthly benefit. I'm looking in the upper left. Assumption living to 85 and 90. Again, we're showing a very liberal numbers. May not make it that long. May not be 66, so the numbers will change. But just to show you what it's actually showing here is on October of 2016, Kathy's 66. She is going to file for spousal benefits. So what it does, the actual Social Security report shows you how to implement the steps. It kind of tells you. It's what I call it's almost like a roadmap. Kathy's going to get $1139, and the total is $1139. In April 2020, David, who's now 70, is going to collect his benefit. That's Kathy's benefit she's collecting, the total monthly benefit. October 2020, Kathy turned 70. She now changed it to collecting her full retirement benefit. So the nice thing about it, it's showing you the strategy that's used, how each piece fits together, and how to maximize the collection strategies. Now, what you do is you're going to combine the Social Security report with your income report, which is step 4, and let's take a look. What we're going to see now is a look at step 4, which is combining your Social Security report with the full income report. This is going to show you here, if you look at the beginning of the chart, you'll see the darker green or kind of a grayish green, then a lighter green. The darker green is going to show you Social Security income in there. The lighter green is going to show you available assets and other income. The little red is going to show you wants remaining, and a darker red is going to show you any needs remaining. So this is showing you here, if you look at the screen around, I guess it's around 92 or so, there's some gaps in income in there. So this is what you'll see when you're looking at the Social Security report integrated into the income report. You'll see some gaps. What happens as you look to make the right corrections and right decisions, you'll see this. What happens now is those red areas are now filled with green, and that's showing you that those gaps were plugged. So when you look at it as a continuum, as a full chart, as a full retirement, you're going to see how there's a gap that's in there, how to fill that gap, and now you'll basically will see an income report that looks like, now I can understand it. Now I realize where the problems were. I can make the right decisions, because if I change something, that's going to change my total report, and it might give me a bigger gap, or it might take the gap out. So that's how you basically make the good Social Security choices and good decisions. What happens is this. When you use, and I think the 6 steps really kind of brings it together. When you see it all, I mean, it's a lot of material. You're looking at tax returns, you're looking at the averages, you're looking at the file and suspend or restricted, all the different things. What I think happens is when you have all the material, and obviously you have it in the book, when you look at it, it's there. You may tend to understand it, but don't really have the whole picture. So what we try to do is when you look at the 6 steps in the right process, using an economics approach to planning, it's very, very different than your conventional approach. And it generates a very, very different and much more sensible advice. What I want you to do is to focus on the gas gauge. I want you to see the gas gauge full and not empty, because that's going to make your retirement enjoyable instead of having all the stress of worrying. This is going to conclude Section 5. It's actually going to conclude the program. And I just want to review a little bit of some of the things that we need. I want to make sure that everyone had enjoyed the program, obviously, and you opting to get your Social Security report. It's a very, very simple process. We do that. We speak on the phone. We do it live on the computer. You can kind of really see it, and I think it makes such a many of the folks that had it done all said, it really makes a huge difference. I can get to see it clearly, and it really kind of helps tremendously. Quick recap, the 5 retirement risks we talked about, taxing of the Social Security benefits, ideas to negate these tax increases. Internet info is polluted. You got to be very careful when you read things. There's always something. If there's one article in favor, there's 5 articles against. We learned a little bit about averages. We had a little part on the sequence of returns. We went through the 6-step process, the Social Security report, combining the income report and the Social Security report, and ultimately looking at the income report to close any kind of gaps or problems in those numbers. I want to thank you tremendously for participating in the program. I want to apologize if they were a little too lengthy at times. I try to break the program down into manageable sections. If you have comments, I super appreciate them, but just contact me via email so we can pick a time to do your income report and your Social Security report. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Welcome back, folks. I want to thank you for finishing your video series. I hope that you send some feedback as far as the programs, how they're going, what needs to get done, improved, or changed. We'll gladly do that as we go forward with our next, as we update our topics. As far as the next topics are concerned, we have remember the 4 different topics that we introduced. So you feel free to take any of those topics. Just give us a call, and we'll make sure you have an access code to access those rest of the videos. Thank you very much for enjoying. I hope you enjoyed the series. Thank you. Bye now.